his former teammate Kevin Durant, who's making his Nets debut. Steph will once again be without Clay. He's done for the year with a torn Achilles. So let's start there, Nick. Can Steph Curry carry the Warriors to the playoffs?
I believe he can, and I believe he will. But I also am as excited to find out if I'm right on this as almost anything that is going to take place this year. Because Steph Curry's place in history is unimpeachable. Broussard, I just did, and I haven't released it yet, but my 50 best players of the last 50 years, I spent way too much time on it over the last 9 months. And Steph Curry came in 13th, right behind Kevin Durant, Dr. J, Moses Malone. Like that, we are talking about the greats in the history of the game. Guys nowhere near Steph Curry on the pyramid. Allen Iverson, Russell Westbrook, James Harden's relatively close, but he's not 13th. All of those guys showed you that they could take a mediocre to bad supporting cast and will them to 45 to 50 wins and a playoff berth. We don't know if Steph can do that. I think he can do that. And Broussard, we know that if you put Westbrook on Steph's Warriors in 2015, they would have been way worse. We know that. But is it possible that if you put Steph on Russ's Thunder in 2017, switched him out, that the Thunder would have been worse? That that he is the perfect player for a good team to make it an all-time team. But if you put him on a bad team or a mediocre team, that he can't do what a guy like Allen Iverson, who's an inferior player to him, could do. I want to find out. So I believe he can, but to me it's a question mark, and we haven't seen him do it before. Last year he broke his hand, so we didn't get the opportunity. So to me, that is a super interesting storyline of this season, Broussard.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. I like your ranking. I don't know if it's exactly 13, might be 14, somewhere around there.
Right.
But I think he's the best small player ever. And I know he's 6'3", but he's a small, below-the-rim player. I've always had Isaiah Thomas from the Pistons as the greatest small player. Isaiah's mad at me because I moved to Steph ahead of him, but this guy changed the game. And I'm with you. I want to see, has the game kind of caught up to Steph? You know, where you got Damian Lillard taking these shots from nearly half court, Jamal Murray, other guys shoot, Trae Young shooting these deep jump shots. I think the word is, can he? Yes, he certainly can, and they'll be in the hunt for that one of those last playoff spots. But if I had to bet, I'd probably bet against it. Not really a slight on Steph, but I'm looking at the supporting cast. And Draymond Green's the second best player, but we all know that Draymond is not a scorer. He has to be around 3 bona fide, or at least 2 bona fide great scores for him to be able to play his game, do the other things, and really be effective. They don't have that this year. Their second and third best scorers, Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre, guess what? They can't shoot. So they have got some problems with that roster. James Wiseman, who I really like, thought it was a great pick in the lottery. He hasn't even played yet. And when he does play, it'll be the first time in like 13 months. So what's he going to do as a young kid on that team? So I just don't think he has a supporting cast. I'm with you, Nick. I want to see if he can lift them into the playoffs. I think he will have put on a heck of a show if he does it, but I would bet against it.
Okay, so Nick, if he does it, I feel like your 13th ranking is solidified. Now he proves that he could pull like the Allen Iverson, you know, get to the final, step over Ty Lue, win a game, then get swept. But what if he doesn't do it? If he doesn't do it, it feels like you're low-key saying that, like, this is going to be a mark on his resume. But
yeah,
at the same time,
it is.
They're not built. They're not built for that. Like the thing about that Iverson team was built for Iverson. It's like, all right, let's put Mutombo in the middle and Aaron McKee, you help out. Like Steve Kerr last year, where they talked about Steve Kerr was like, I'm not going to James Harden the guy. It's a lot on him, and we're not built to space out like that.
Well, but here's the
just
thing.
Tell me if it doesn't happen.
So hold on, let me respond to the Kerr thing. I get that if it's how do we want to win, but if it's we either win playing a certain way or lose playing our way, then you've got to choose option A unless option A actually isn't available to you. So right now, I'm so glad Broussard brought up Isaiah Thomas, because on my 50 best players of the last 50 years, you know who's 14th? Isaiah Thomas. But Isaiah Thomas could do this. Isaiah Thomas he never put up the jaw-dropping numbers except for when he had to. And yes, he was always on good teams, but he went to 3 straight finals and won 2 titles without another top 75 all-time teammate. And while the guy averaged like 17 points per game, every time his team was in an elimination game, he threw up a 43-point, 14-assist game because he had that gear. I would never penalize Steph Broussard for a hypothetical. That if his whole career he got to play alongside Clay and you just never knew what he would look like without him, you can't say, well, I don't think he would have been able to do it, so I'm going to penalize him. But if we find out that when he doesn't have the great players around him, he does look a lot more like Dame. Dame, who as much as everyone loved him, last year, when it was just him and CJ, that team was 32 wins headed into the bubble. They were out of the postseason, or maybe 32 wins before the bubble started. I don't remember exactly, but they were in trouble. If that's what this Warriors team looks like, then it is hard to look our mutual friend Isaiah Thomas in the eye and say, this guy was better than you. And so it's, again, we're in the margins, but I do think it's things that real diehard NBA fans care about. And we are the guys that Steph Curry is considered his contemporaries historically, all of them could take almost any roster and guarantee a playoff berth. Not a finals appearance, not multiple, but a playoff berth. And if this year Steph can't take this roster and get it above the Pelicans, I do think that makes you, Broussard, reconsider a touch where he is historically. Again, and we're not saying, oh, he's out of the list now, but I do think when we're talking about these types of things, this is a piece of information that's not yet part of the puzzle.
It is interesting. I think we have to remember, too, Allen Iverson, but for the year they went to the finals, they had some bad seasons in Philadelphia with Allen Iverson. They had years where they went out early in the playoffs. I mean, he didn't have much playoff success at all, except for the one year that Larry Brown dragged that team to the finals. That was a good team, but they were built around Iverson.
Broussard, before you finish your point, just quickly before you finish your point and then go on.
Yep.
But they were making the playoffs, and Iverson, I don't have it in front of me.
In the East.
Iverson's but Iverson's also like 42 on the list. Like, you know what I mean? He's not Steph Curry. He's not. We're not talking about him in those terms. So, but go ahead and finish your point.
I would agree with you that this is an interesting year, and it is hard to say if he can't get them to the playoffs. Maybe it does change his ranking. However, he also has this in his corner. Guess what? He changed the game. How many guys in NBA history can we say literally changed the game of basketball? He has changed the way it's played, and that is huge for him in terms of his historical rankings, period. And that won't go away, ever.
All right, so I want to just dig into, Nick, to Steve Kerr's take that he's not going to James Harden him. So here are the top 5 usage rates of all time. If we just wanted to go, if Steve Kerr wants to take a look at this, all time, Russ won MVP. These are the only 5 guys who have 38 and above usage rate. But there's one other guy, if we open up the aperture just a little bit, the last time we saw Steph really cook, boom, same as Jordan. So if Steve Kerr says, you know what, Steph, we need Davidson Steph, new nickname, Davidson Steph to come out.
Wait, was that's when he was at Davidson?
Yeah, senior year Davidson. Senior year Davidson, he had same usage rate as Michael Jordan, and that's when the world fell in love with him. So I think Steve Kerr, you can take this and show it to him, like, you know what? Cook a few games for us.
Free
Just
advice.
cook. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Be Davidson Steph and go. And because not only would it give us the best chance to win, I was watching First Things First.